This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hey, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday morning Yankees Talk Show with me, Paul Semendinger. Hey, let's make today a great day, even though the Yankees are playing terribly. This is one of the worst stretches I have ever seen the Yankees play in. Now, maybe I'm over exaggerating. I really don't think so. It's been bad. It's been worse than bad. And the Yankees don't seem to have an answer. They don't seem to know how to break out of this funk that really started in late June. The Yankees went 500 in July. They lost the last game of June. And since August came around, I think they've won just 4 games. Think about that. Today's August 20th. The Yankees have won but 4 games this entire month. It is becoming one of the worst months in the history of the Yankees franchise. I put up a statistic on the Start Spreading the News Yankee site. My Yankee site, the Yankee blog, Start Spreading the News, which can be found at www.startspreadingthenews.blog. And of course, I believe it is the number one and the very best Yankees blog out there. Each day, I put up new content at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. No one gives that kind of Yankees coverage. All original thoughts, all original content. Plus, during the games, we also have a game thread. And after the game, we put up the quick hit, which lets all the readers and anyone who comes to the site know how the game turned out. Now, this weekend, we have afternoon games today, Saturday, August 20th, and tomorrow, Sunday, August 21st. So on those days, there won't be a 1 o'clock and a 4 o'clock article because obviously there's a game being played in the Bronx, or obviously if they're on the road. But since there's a game being played today, there will be no special 1 o'clock article or 4 o'clock article. The articles will be the game thread for these afternoon games this weekend. So it's August 20th. When you're a baseball fan, especially when you're a kid and you fall in love with the game for the very first time, you start to remember things and learn things about the players and the game and a lot of what we learn, a lot of what we come up with sticks in our brain forever. Growing up, my favorite player was a Yankee third baseman named Greg Nettles. Some people don't even know who Greg Nettles is today, and that's a shame, and we're going to get into that in a moment. But boy, oh boy, the first things I did as a kid was I read the backs of baseball cards, and I read baseball magazines, and anything that had anything to do with the Yankees, I devoured. So I remembered that in 1976, Greg Nettles hit 32 home runs, and in 1977, he hit 37 home runs. These types of things just stuck in my brain, and I'll never forget them. Who led the American League in home runs in 1976? That was Greg Nettles. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but Greg Nettles, in 2 separate seasons, led the American League, the entire league, in WAR during the 1970s. If WAR had been a statistic back then, Greg Nettles today might be in the Hall of Fame. Maybe one day on this program, we can look at Greg Nettles' Hall of Fame case. He's got a good one. He's one of the very best third basemen who's not in the Hall of Fame. He was a great, great player and a member of a host of Yankee playoff and world championship teams. 1976, the Yankees went to the World Series. 1977, 1978, they won the World Series. 1980, they went to the American League Championship Series. 1981, they went again to the World Series. Only that time they lost. So that's a lot of winning for a guy who was the third baseman on that team and who would eventually be named the captain. And why do I bring all this up today on August 20th? Because one of those things we learn about when we're kids, or at least I did when I was a kid, and I started to follow the game, is, well, I had to know when my favorite player's birthday was. I had to know what day was Greg Nettles' birthday. I think you're getting to the punchline already if you're thinking about it. Greg Nettles' birthday was and is August 20th. So somewhere out there in California, Greg Nettles, the favorite player of my youth, I wish you a happy 78th birthday. 78. My goodness. I hope it's a great day for you, Greg Nettles. Happy birthday. And today, on the Yankee site, start spreading the news. And here on the Dr. Sem Saturday Morning Yankee Show, we are going to spend some time talking a little about Greg Nettles. Because there's an oversight here that the Yankees are very guilty of. The Yankees have not properly recognized Greg Nettles. In fact, not just Greg Nettles, but a host of great players have all been forgotten about by the Yankees. And it's wrong, and it's unacceptable. The Yankees have this area of the stadium, and they like to tout it, and they talk about it, and they like to say it's the place where they recognize their legends. But it's a place where they also have failed to recognize their legends. Now, here's something I wrote about in my wonderful book, The Least Among Them. And let's get a graphic of that up right here, right there. The Ultimate Insider book by Marty Appel. The Least Among Them is starting to win book awards. National Review said that it was one of the books of the year for 2021. It's a great book. And in that book, I have a chapter devoted to an aspect of Monument Park that no one has ever noted before, except me. And it's something that's really important. And it's an oversight. And it's wrong, and it needs to be corrected. If you think about the Yankees, they had great catchers. Jorge Posada, Thurman Munson, Bill Dickey, Yogi Berra. They're all in Monument Park. The Yankees have had great first basemen. Don Mattingly, Lou Gehrig. They're in Monument Park. The Yankees have had great second basemen, among them Willie Randolph. Willie Randolph's in Monument Park. All these players deserve to be there. The Yankees have had great shortstops. Phil Rizzuto, Derek Jeter. They're in Monument Park. The Yankees, of course, have had great outfielders. Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle. They're all in Monument Park. The Yankees have had great pitchers. Ron Guidry, Whitey Ford, Rich Gossage, Mariano Rivera. They're in Monument Park. The Yankees had a great PA announcer, Bob Shepard. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Yankee Stadium. Remember his voice? The greatest. They called him the voice of God. He's in Monument Park. The Yankees have had great owners, Jacob Rupert, George Steinbrenner. They're in Monument Park. They've had great general managers. They're in Monument Park. I skipped a position, didn't I? Would you believe that in the great history of the New York Yankees, the team has been unable to figure out that there's not one third baseman in Monument Park? And then you might say, but the Yankees haven't had a great third baseman who deserves to be there. Well, I'll argue that Greg Nettles is the great third baseman who deserves to be there. But the Yankees have had a host of great third basemen over their career. Home Run Baker, Hall of Famer, played third base for the Yankees. Joe Sewell was only there for a few years, but he's a Hall of Famer. He played third base for the Yankees. Red Rolfe was widely considered until Greg Nettles came around as the greatest third baseman in Yankees history. Clete Boyer was a great third baseman. Andy Carey was a very good third baseman. Jumpin' Joe Dugan came over from the Red Sox and helped the Yankees in the 20s with their championship teams. He played third base. And of course, in recent years, Alex Rodriguez was also a third baseman. How can the Yankees have a position that's never been represented in Monument Park? It makes no sense. They need to fix that. It's an egregious error and it needs to be fixed. And the person who most deserves it is the guy who played third base more than any other person in Yankees history. It's the guy who was a Yankees captain. It's a guy who was a Yankee champion numerous times. Greg Nettles in the 1978 World Series made the plays that turned that entire World Series around. The Yankees were down 2-0. Ron Guidry was on the mound, and Ron Guidry was getting hit hard. Greg Nettles made play after play at third base, reminiscent of Brooks Robinson. Diving catches, short hop catches, and his great glove work stifled the Dodgers. The Yankees won that game, and they went on to win the next 3 and become world champions again. That probably doesn't happen if Greg Nettles doesn't play third base as well as he did. I showed a number of months ago on the site that if you look at some defensive metrics, even though Brooks Robinson won the Gold Glove every year from, I don't know, the beginning of time until the day he retired at third base, that some of those years, Greg Nettles was actually the better defender. But back then, it was just if there's a Gold Glove to give out, they gave it to Brooks Robinson. Greg Nettles deserved some of those Gold Gloves. He did win 2 toward the middle to end of his career after Brooks Robinson had retired. But if Nettles had 5 or 6 Gold Gloves, people might look at his Hall of Fame case a little bit differently. But he was a great Yankee, and he deserves to be in Monument Park. But it's not just Greg Nettles. There's a host of guys that belong in Monument Park. Now, tomorrow, August 21st, the Yankees are recognizing Paul O'Neill, the Warrior, and they're going to retire his uniform number 21. Now, Paul O'Neill was a great Yankee, a very, very good player, a core component of those championship teams of the 1990s. That's great stuff. When Paul O'Neill came to the Yankees, he was one of the first guys to come who helped turn the franchise around from the team that lost all the time in the early 1990s to the team that became the championship team of the mid to late 1990s. He deserves recognition. We could debate on whether he deserves to have his number retired. I don't think he necessarily deserves to have his number retired. And before we get to retiring the numbers of guys like Paul O'Neill, I think it's more important that the Yankees start to recognize many of the players that the franchise has forgotten about. Let me just read to you the most recent members of Monument Park. Derek Jeter, well, great player, played in the 1990s. Andy Pettitte, great player, played in the 1990s. Jorge Posada, great player, played in the 1990s. Mel Stottlemyre, great pitcher from the 60s and 70s. Willie Randolph, great second baseman from the 70s and 80s. Bernie Williams, great outfielder, played in the 1990s. Joe Torre, great manager, managed in the 1990s. Paul O'Neill, great outfielder, played in the 1990s. Goose Gossage, Hall of Fame relief pitcher from the 1970s and 80s. Tino Martinez, great first baseman, played in the 1990s. Mariano Rivera, great closer, played in the 1990s. Do you see that it's skewed in one direction? Seems like almost every good or great player from the 1990s teams are recognized at Monument Park, and that's great. I'm happy for them. But while the Yankees are recognizing all of those guys, they're neglecting other players who are just important in their history and who were better ball players. If one were to look down the list of all-time war in Yankees history, you would see that a lot of those guys I named, absenting the guys like Mariano Rivera, one of the greats of all time, Derek Jeter, one of the greats of all time. But a lot of those other names were guys that, well, you compare their careers to some guys who came before them, they don't match up. Do you know who the 11th greatest Yankee of all time is, according to WAR? Roy White. Roy White was an amazing Yankee. He played from 1965 through 1979. And if you look on every single statistic, almost at least, he's among the top 10 or 15 in almost every statistical category in Yankees history. Why isn't Roy White in Monument Park? Tony Lazzara is a Hall of Fame second baseman. He's not there. He's the 12th best Yankee, according to WAR. Earl Coombs is a Hall of Fame center fielder. He's 14th in all-time Yankees WAR. He's not in Monument Park. 15th is the aforementioned Greg Nettles. They don't have any third baseman in Monument Park, but Nettles belongs to be there. He's the 15th greatest Yankee by WAR of all time. Brett Gardner's recently retired. He's 17th, so we can absent him. But how about Charlie Keller, a slugging outfielder in the 1940s, 19th all time? Nobody remembers Charlie Keller. How come? Because the Yankees themselves don't take the time to recognize the great players who came before the 1990s. They're fixated on those 1990s teams. And again, those players deserve to be recognized, but not at the expense of so many others. Gil McDougall, a great infielder in the 1950s, 22nd all-time. Tommy Henrich, another great outfielder, played with Charlie Keller and Joe DiMaggio on those 40s teams. He is not in Monument Park. Joe Gordon, Hall of Fame second baseman, 24th all-time in Yankee WAR. He's not in Monument Park. We could go down the list, player after player. None of those guys are in Monument Park. Paul O'Neill, great Yankee. Take nothing away from Paul O'Neill. He's 36th. There's something wrong about that. The Yankees need to do a better job. Once you're in Monument Park, you become a Yankees legend forever, and people talk about you, and people learn about you. But when you don't go into Monument Park, you sort of get pushed into the dustbin of history, and that's not fair for these guys. It's especially not fair for guys like Roy White and Greg Nettles, who are still alive and in their late 70s, who deserve their moment in the sun. They deserve their chance to have that moment. And it's high time that the Yankees take the initiative and recognize some of the greats who came before these 1990s guys. Again, I love the 1990s guys, but let's not recognize them at the expense of better players and deserving players who came before them. It's just not right. All right, speaking of just not right, 30 minutes goes way too quickly. Have you ever noticed that? We're already at the 19-minute mark. Anyway, the Yankees, as a team, the 2022 Yankees are playing terribly right now. It's really bad. They keep getting shut out. They've lost, I believe, their last 5 series in a row, about to lose their 6th if they lose today or tomorrow. What's going on? The Yankees built up a great lead, and they have clung to that lead. How about this? Early in the season, we're the best team in the American baseball. We're on pace for 120 wins. Then they started losing, and the talking point became, we're the best team in the American League. Then it became, well, the Mets are better too. So we're the 3rd best team in baseball. Then the Astros got better than them. We're the 2nd best team in the American League. And then it became, we have a 10-game lead. Then it became, we have a 9-game lead. Then it became, we have an 8-game lead. That's where they are right now, 8 games. With about a month and 11 days to go in the season. See, if we knew a little more about Yankees history, and if we talked a little bit more about Yankees history, and we recognized guys like Roy White and Greg Nettles, we'd remember 1978. 1978, the Yankees were down and out. They were way back, 13 and a half games in July, and they came back to win the American League East and eventually the World Series, the Red Sox crumbled. Well, they sort of crumbled. They actually got hot at the end and forced a one-game playoff with the Yankees. But basically, the Red Sox' huge lead crumbled away during that 1978 magical season. On August 20th, 1978, the Red Sox had an 8.5-game lead in the American League East. On August 20th, 2022, the Yankees have an 8-game lead. If you think that the Yankees can't blow this thing, you're wrong. And right now, they're doing everything they can to blow it. And they're doing a bad job. They're doing a bad job, like in every single way. The Yankees are so slow to make moves. When they finally make a move, it's like moving a glacier. Now, listen, I have no animosity towards any of these players. They're baseball players. They're human beings. I root for them. They're Yankees. But when a player isn't performing, if the goal is to win the World Series, the team has to make a move. Babe Ruth was a great player, maybe the greatest player of all time. That doesn't mean you want him playing right now, of course. But the Yankees had Aaron Hicks. They still do. And they kept putting him out there day after day after day after day, even though he wasn't playing well, even though they had an option in the minor leagues in Estevan Florial. Why not give the young kid a chance? It's obviously the right time. It was obvious that Aaron Hicks, at 32 years old, is on the downside of his career, and Florial, only 24 still, has the possibility of a future. Why won't the Yankees give Florial a shot? Now, you're going to say the Yankees just called him up 3 days ago. That's my point. It took forever for the Yankees to finally make that move because they move at a glacier's pace. But then they do this kind of stuff. They brought up Florial. Now, when you bring up a kid like that, how is he going to get great? How are we going to know if he's good or not? Well, you have to play him. So they played him for 2 games. And then last night, he was on the bench. Can someone please explain that to me? Why would you bench the kid after only 2 games? Makes no sense. Oh, you'd say, well, the Yankees wanted to give a different guy a chance in right field. Oswaldo Cabrera. I get it. He is dynamic. He's dynamite. He's the other young kid they brought up, and he really seems like he might have a great future. But if you were bringing up a kid brand new to the major leagues, would you have him play 3 different positions, including one where he really didn't play much, right field, on 3 different days to welcome him to the major leagues? Is that the way you bring up a player? By moving him around all over the place? Wouldn't it have made more sense to say to Cabrera, you're going to play third base. Let's get you comfortable there. Let's get you comfortable as a major leaguer. And then we'll think about moving you around. You've got the talent. You can play all over the place. But in your first 3 games, would you play him in 3 different positions? And in order to do that, would you then sit Estevan Florial? Hey, bud, you played 2 games. You didn't get any hits. So sorry. Nice try. Tell me any major leaguer who didn't get no hits for a couple of days. It's really mind-boggling. You know, I've been writing a lot on the blog, startspreadingthenews.blog. I've been writing a lot on there about the fact that the Yankees' decision-making just seems poor. I wrote a big piece yesterday, which really took the Yankees to task in a number of ways. And it's something I want to talk about just briefly here. The Yankees traded Jordan Montgomery. Now, I want you to think about this. Some people thought the trade was a good trade. I never did. They traded him for Harrison Bader, a center fielder. Okay. Yankees say we need some outfield help. Aaron Hicks isn't doing it. Okay. But Harrison Bader is on the injured list. Harrison Bader is, or was until very recently, in a walking boot. Since that trade, Harrison Bader has not played an inning of baseball. He's still injured. The Yankees traded a pitcher, Jordan Montgomery, who the guy who was second in the team in innings pitched this year and second on the team in innings pitched last year, so obviously an integral part of the starting rotation, for a guy who can't play. Harrison Bader might be great. Harrison Bader might be amazing, but he's not playing. He's hurt. And the Yankees traded a pitcher, a very good pitcher, or if you want to say at least a pretty good pitcher, for a guy who can't play. But this is what really, like, I thought of this the other day and I said, I just have to write about this because this is so telling about the way the Yankees operate. The talking point was we traded Jordan Montgomery because he's not going to be part of the rotation in October. I want you to think about that for a minute. The Yankees made a decision in late July, early August, that Jordan Montgomery, the guy who's second on the team the last 2 years in innings pitched behind only Garrett Cole, was not going to be in the rotation in October. Think about that. How do the Yankees have any idea what October is going to look like? Jordan Montgomery has gone 3-0 since joining the St. Louis Cardinals. If Jordan Montgomery had gone 3-0, which obviously he can do, in his final 3 starts of the 2022 season for the Yankees, would they have still said you're not going to pitch in the playoffs? Luis Severino's injured. Do we know he's coming back? What if he doesn't come back? Would you still say that Jordan Montgomery's not going to pitch in the playoffs? Nestor Cortez has pitched more innings this year, I think, than in his whole life. How do we know he's going to be ready when October rolls around? Do we know for certain that Jordan Montgomery wasn't going to have a role in the playoffs? Do you see how this thinking makes no sense? The Yankees make a decision in August about their pitching rotation in October when no one knows what October is going to bring. It's possible that Jordan Montgomery could be, or could have been, or would have been one of the big, most important players on the Yankees, a starting pitcher to help take them through the playoffs. But the Yankees decided months before the playoffs that this guy, who's obviously pretty good, he's 3-0 with the Cardinals, the guy who was second on the team in innings pitched, wasn't going to be part of the playoff rotation. It's flawed decision-making at best. And it's one reason the Yankees are struggling. It's because they don't adapt. They make a plan and they ignore all the other information and say, well, that's the plan. That's what we're going with. Montgomery won't pitch in the playoffs. Good. Hicks, he's our center fielder. Good. And then when things change, they don't quite know how to figure that out. It's frustrating. Jordan Montgomery would have been giving the Yankees value right now. Harrison Bader has given them none. All right. Our half hour went much too quickly. I encourage you to go to the Start Spreading the News Yankee blog. We put up new content all the time. We are, I think, the very best, most comprehensive Yankees site out there. We do it for free. We don't make you subscribe. We just give it to our readers because we love writing and talking about the Yankees on a daily basis. That's what we love to do, and we bring it all to you. We have a quick comment here. Looks like Rick's got a comment here, and he said, for anyone who's not brought Dr. Paul's book, it's a sports book. This is a must read. I found myself saying wow on how he ties in great players to the players who had only one game in the majors. Rick, thank you so much. What a great way for me to end the show. I love that. Thank you so much. That book, I'll put up the banner real quick, is called The Least Among Them. And we'll get that banner coming in a second. Sometimes there's a lot of things to scroll through here. There's the banner. Hey, listen, I thank everybody for watching the Start Spreading the News Yankees Saturday show, the Dr. Sem Yankee program. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day. At 8 a.m. this very morning, Pags and Jack Hirsch and I will have the Mac and Jack debate show. Lots more to talk about then. Have a great day, everyone. Make today great. You can do it by staying positive and by being great yourself. Have a great day.